Hello everyone, my name is Santosh Bama. Thank you for joining me. This video is for ISVs who are creating SaaS offers in Azure Marketplace. So the way the ISVs create SaaS offers is from the Partner Center. So if I take you to the Partner Center, this is a typical commercial marketplace program where you can create multiple offers, and we have a SaaS offer up here, and you will have to complete all those pages to be able to publish the offer. And as part of those pages, we have something called the technical configuration page. So we have a landing page, connection webhook, and Azure AD tenant ID and Azure AD application ID, which are part of an app registration. So if you wonder why this information is needed, I highly advise you to look into this link here, learn more about integrating with fulfillment API. So when you click on this link will, or this page will show you the life cycle of a SaaS subscriptions, how you can manage them, what are the APIs you have to implement, and then also implementing the webhook. So this is again specifically for the ISVs who are creating a SaaS offer on the Azure Marketplace, right? So with that, let's go into what are the prerequisites for this, and what are we going to do next steps, right? So the prerequisites for this one is you need to have an Azure account, you need to have an Azure subscription, and a Visual Studio and or VS Code, and then .NET Core. And as far as the steps are concerned, first we'll be creating an Azure app registration in Azure AD. Then we'll create a SQL Server database and schema, and then we'll clone the repo. I'll show you the repository, which is already available, publicly available in Git. I'll show you the repository. We'll clone the repository, and we'll update the app settings, and we'll run the code, make sure it's working locally, and then we'll deploy the code from Visual Studio to Azure. And once we've deployed the code, you can take the links from Azure and use it in your technical configuration page of your SaaS offer. With that, let's go straight to our Azure portal to perform the first step. So the first step, before even we start doing the steps, I'll probably point out to the repo or the repository. So this is the URL. We have github.com/Azure/Microsoft Commercial Marketplace Transactable SaaS Offer SDK. And let's quickly go into the source code. So we have a SRC folder where you have multiple projects, and we have two application projects here, which is a customer provisioning and the publisher solution. So the customer provisioning will give you the landing page and the webhook, and the publisher solution is for the ISVs to manage all their customer subscriptions. And to help you deploy the schema, we have a sample script, or a DB script, I should say. If you go into the deployment folder, go into the database, we have a script where you can use to deploy and create your schema. And I highly recommend you go through the README page or the README documentation on the repository. It clearly explains what each project does and how you should actually use this project. And more importantly, go into the installation instructions to get the first-hand or to get the rich documentation around how you can bring this up. And with that, I'll go into my Azure portal to perform the first step, which is creating an app registration. To do that, go into your Azure Active Directory and then go into your app registrations. Click on the new registration, and then let's give it a name. Is be SaaS SDK. Give it a demo. Select account in any organizational directory. Let's hit register. Once you hit register, go into the quick start and then select web application. Go into ASP.NET Core and then click make these changes for me. So this is adding few redirect URIs and also implicit grant ID tokens to true. Let's hit make updates. And that is done. But if you saw the redirect URIs, it was adding the localhost 1 port 44321. This might not be the port where your local Visual Studio is running. So I believe mine's running 44363. I'll update that. And please, on your end, please update to the one where your local Visual Studio is running. And then also add another redirect URI, which is home/index. So I'll save this information here. And with that, we have our first step done. And then let's go and create a SQL database. Let me hit SQL database, add a database. and then give a resource group. I'll just go SB SaaS SDK Sample RG. I'll go OK. I'll give a name, the SaaS SDK DB, and then I'll create a new server. So server name is the SaaS SDK DB server. Then I'll give a login name and my password. Make sure you choose a strong password. I'll pick a region for the West US 2. Then I'll hit OK. And that will populate my server. For the demo purpose, I'll pick a SKU, a basic SKU. So you make sure you pick the appropriate SKU. I'll hit apply. And then I'll go with the defaults for the rest of the options, and then I'll hit create. So this will create our SQL Server as well as the database. So in the interest of time, I'll just pause the video and be back once the deployment is done. So our database is successfully deployed. Before going into the database, please go into the SQL Server which we just deployed, and we need to do one change. I'm not showing you this because you need to add the client IP. Just follow my instructions. So go into your SQL Server and scroll down to see there is an option inside under the securities menu. There's a sub-menu called Firewalls and Virtual Networks. Go inside it, make a couple of changes. You should see something called allow Azure services and resources to access the server. Say yes to that. And also on the top of that same page, you'll see add client IP. So I'll just make those two changes and then I'll hit save. So with that done, this is updating my server firewall. So I'll just go into the database now. And the next step is we need to create the schema. So the way we'll do that is I've already shown you the schema script is available in your repository. And maybe even before doing that, go into the repository and maybe clone the repo first. So just go ahead and click on the code and copy the link and clone it, or even you can just open straight with Visual Studio if you have a handler on the browser. And if you do that, you'll see inside the deployment folder, you have something called database, and inside the database, you have the script. So because I've already cloned my repository, I can go to that file on my local file explorer, which I'll do that in front of you now. So I'll just log into my database first, and you'll see it's empty database. And then what I'll do is I'll do open query, and then select a file, and then go into my folder where my repository has been cloned, and I'll go into the deployment and go into the database, go into the script, just select OK. This will load up my script here, and I'll quickly run the script to create my schema. So my schema is created. Now if I refresh, I should see all the tables available. So with that, what I'll do is we'll need to do one more step here. We'll just need to edit the data. We need to add something called known users. These known users in the database table are the users who have access to your publisher solution. So let's do that. I'll add a user account. Click create new row. Add the user account which you want access to, and then give a role ID of 1, and then hit save. So that will add my user account. Let me just go back and make sure that's actually being added. So if we go in there, that's added into my table. So with that, we'll go to the next step of cloning the repository. Just go into the URL and copy the link from here, and then clone it in your local computer, or you can open straight with Visual Studio. I've already done that in the interest of time, and you can see my projects listed here. And if I go into my projects, I can go into my app settings.json, and then app settings.json in both the publisher solution as well as the customer provisioning apps. So we need to get these settings here. That's the next step what we're going to do. And to do that, if you look at from here, the client ID, tenant ID, and client secret are the information from the app registration we created in the step 1. And the other one is a default connection string, which is what we created in the step 2. So let's get the details and copy paste across. So we'll go back into our Azure portal and go to our app registration first. Go to Azure Active Directory, go to the app registrations, go into the app registration we've created, And then we need to copy, we'll first copy the tenant ID. So this tenant ID goes into three places. So the first place is the app settings of the publisher solution as well as the customer provisioning application. And also you use this in your technical configuration of your offer in the partner center. In the same way, we'll copy the client ID and do the same thing. We'll go back into our app settings, paste that there, but also go into our partner center and paste it there too. So with that, we have the tenant ID and application ID. Now we need to generate the secret. So for the third setting, which is the client secret, we need to generate a secret. For that, we'll go back into the app registration, click on the certificates and secrets, click new secret, I give a name, and then I'll click add. This should give me a secret value. I'll copy the secret, go back into my app settings and paste my secret there. So we have that information. Now we need to get the connection string. So to get the connection string, we'll go back to our Azure portal and we'll go into our SQL database, which we created as part of the step 2. And then on the left, you should see something called connection string. Copy that. Copy the connection string. Go to your Azure portal. Go to your Visual Studio and paste it in the app settings. So while you paste it, you might have to update the password because it doesn't copy the password across. We save that there and uncomment the section of the app settings. And I'll do the same on the other app settings as well. So let me just paste that connection string. Then I'll go password. Make sure you have a strong password here. This is just a demo, so I just used a very weak password, or in fact a bad password. So let me just uncomment it, save it. Now let's run our customer provisioning on local just to make sure it's actually working. So there you go, that's my landing page there. I can sign in. So this will ask me to pick an account. I'll pick an account. And it's asking me consent to log into this application. I'll just hit accept. And there you go, I have my landing page ready. So this is the URL of your landing page. However, you cannot use the local host. So we have to deploy to Azure to use this link. And you also have a subscriptions page for your customers to manage your subscriptions. With that, we'll close this application and we'll switch to the publisher solution. And then we'll run that to make sure that's actually running without any errors. So let's do F5. So remember that we've added the user email account in the known users database table. Only that user can log into this application. So this will actually ask me to pick an account in a second. So there you go, it's asking me to pick an account. I'll pick my same account which I put it in the known users database table, and that should let me in. So this is my ISV's portal where I can manage all my customer subscriptions. So with that, we're good with the applications running them on local. Now let's deploy them to Azure. For that, what I'll do is I'm doing it straight from Visual Studio, but I highly recommend you have a CI/CD pipeline set up. Make use of Azure DevOps if you need to. Azure DevOps is a pretty cool tool for that. So I'll right click on the customer provisioning app and then I'll say publish. And then I'll pick Azure, go next, Azure App Service, go next. And then I'll create a new app service. And here, make sure you're logged into an account which can access your Azure environment. Then I'll pick the resource group I created my database in. I'll create a new app service plan. I'll go with the free one, but please pick the appropriate one for your situation. I'll just make sure the app ID or the application hosting plan. So that's the plan. So I'll just give it a -ASP at the end. Because I'm only going to use one app service plan for both my apps, I'll just use SaaS SDK ASP there. That's looking good. Let me hit OK. For my app name, I'll just do SB customer provisioning. I'll remove the rest of the digits at the end because that's my URL, what it's going to start off with, right? It's going to be like SB SaaS SDK customer provisioning.azurewebsites.net. So let me just hit create. That will create my app service in Azure. So my app service is now created. Let me hit finish. This will create my publish profile. And this is my publish profile. And then I'll hit publish. This will push the code up to Azure. So my application is now deployed, and Visual Studio is opening up my application automatically. So before I hit sign in, remember that we need to add the redirect URL. So this is an Azure, the Azure application app service URL for the customer provisioning app. So I'll copy this, and then I'll go to my Azure app registration, which I've created as step 1, and then I'll add the redirect URI. So let me go into the app registration, pick the one I created, go into my redirect URIs. So I'll add 3 more for the customer provisioning app with the same pattern we have for the local host. So I'll go sign in -YDC, and then add another one with the home/index. And let me hit save there. This will update my app registration redirect URIs. Now I should be able to sign in. So let me hit sign in. It'll ask me to pick an account. This application, because the customer provisioning one, it will just let anyone from any Azure Active Directory sign in. So you see this issue because it's not populated or propagated the redirect URIs. So let me just close this and reopen the browser and try to go into that one more time. So let me do that. Let's go sign in and then select an account. There you go. Now it's logged me in. So this is my landing page, as I said, and this is my subscriptions page for my customers to manage their own subscriptions, right? So I'll copy this link, and this link is what goes into my offer technical configuration landing page URL and the connection webhook URL as well, /API/Azure webhook, because it's part of the same application. So I'll quickly show you that. Let me just hit save draft here. So with that, you're ready with all your technical configuration settings. You can complete the rest of the pages before you publish your offer. So let's go back and see the controller for the Azure webhook inside the customer provisioning app. So you see a webhook folder. So you see the Azure webhook controller. So it's part of the same application. That's the reason for the path which I put in the webhook URL. With that, we have the customer provisioning running on Azure. Now let's deploy the publisher solution, and let's hit publish here. Select Azure, Azure App Service. Let's hit create new Azure App Service. I'll pick the same resource group and the same app service plan. Give a proper name for my application. That's checking if the name is still available. And that's good. So let me create that app service. So the app service is now created. And let me hit finish. That will create my publish profile. And I can hit publish to push the code up to Azure. So let me hit publish. So I'm pushing my app settings.json to app service, but in an ideal scenario, you maybe as a best practice, please use Azure Key Vault to store your app settings, or use app service app settings to do that. Do not push the app settings.json file. And this will also help you have different settings for your different environments if you're having a dev, test, prod environment. So this will push my code up to Azure. So my code is now deployed successfully to Azure. Before I go to this publisher solution, I'll copy this URL. If you remember, we need to add it to our redirect URI. So I'll go back into my Azure portal to the app registration I've created. Let me add 3 more for the publisher solution with the same pattern. Sign in -OIDC, and then I have home/index. So let me save that. That should take a minute to propagate. And let me now go into so this is my publisher solution, which Visual Studio automatically opened up after the deployment. So let me see if it's actually working. Otherwise, I will have to close the browser and relog in. But make sure you're logging into this application only with that known users account, which you added into your database table. So let me hit my user account. So no, that's not working. Let me just go ahead and close it. That should take me back into the login page. Let me hit sign in. And there you go. That's my ISV's admin application. They can manage all their customer subscriptions, plans, and offers. So with that, let's recap what we've done. So we have created an app registration. We have created a database and schema. We have deployed, or we have cloned the repo or the repository from GitHub, and then we updated all the app settings. We made sure the applications, the customer provisioning one and the publisher solution, are running fine on local. And then we pushed up to Azure, and then we used our customer provisioning URL in our technical configuration page of our offer, and also the app registration details of the tenant ID and application ID in our technical configuration. So with that, I'll again point to two more important pages which I've already showed you. So this is the page for the SaaS fulfillment API. So just go through this page. This will actually explain you completely about the life cycle of the SaaS subscription. And the second one is the README on the repository itself, the main README file, but also the installation instructions you'll find in the link inside that page. With that, I hope this has been helpful. Thank you very much for joining me. Have a good day.